Good morning and welcome to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. We're the quasi-independent agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation. You can learn more about us on our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. So no partner is more important to the work that we do at the CITT than Miami-Dade County's own Department of Transportation and Public Works, or DTPW for short. And I'm thrilled to have two great professionals, two long-standing friends at DTPW join us as our guest on the program today. We have the Interim Director of DTPW, Josiel Ferrer-Diaz. Josiel, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here. Great privilege.
Thank you, sir. And we have a longtime friend. In fact, I think we did our master's together many years ago. Lisa Colmenares. Lisa is DTPW's Chief Planning Officer. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Javier. We're honored to be here.
Thank you. And we're getting started a little late today because, of course, we hit some traffic on the way in, right?
So yes, that's why we need to promote transit as a way to move.
That's right. So let's talk about DTPW. So if it isn't obvious by the title, what is it that the department does?
So the department was conformed and put together some years ago. It is the mixture of what was formerly Miami-Dade Transit and the Department of Public Works. And we encompass anything that has to do with infrastructure and mobility, outside of course, natural utilities being the water and sewer. But we oversee everything that has to do with the operations of transit and maintenance of transit, and anything that has to do to support our transit operations, that being Metro Rail, Metro Mover, and of course bus, as well as all the other services that we provide now, Metro Link, Metro Connect, of course the STS or the transportation for folks that need that level of transportation. And then on the other side, what was formerly Public Works, of course, another important part of DTPW is we have the entire area that has to do with maintenance of our roadway infrastructure. That being not only the pavement and the sidewalk, but also traffic signals, signs, and of course drainage and all of those things. And accompanied with that, what's interesting is we have a group of professionals that are in charge of leading all these projects, all the way from traffic engineers to designers, all the way to folks that specialize in project delivery. And of course, nothing gets started without proper planning. So we also have, for the first time, I would say, in many years, we have a proper division that oversees all planning operations.
Which is a great segue to Lisa. So Lisa, tell us about what you do and what the planning office does.
Thank you so much. And the planning division, if you may, started 3 years ago. So we have been, in my position, which was created 3 years ago, the Chief Planning Officer, oversees infrastructure planning. So we oversee all of the capital programs, planning, including the project development and environment, looking at infrastructure renewal planning programs, making sure that we meet all of the federal and state requirements, including the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit PD&Es. That is the infrastructure planning. We also work with the different municipalities and also with our own county planning department to oversee all of the transit-oriented development and also the requirements when developments come in. We review those and coordinate with all of our internal departments. We also have a multimodal department section that oversees all of the bicycle, pedestrian, freight planning, roadway planning efforts. So all of that was created 3 years ago. So we're very, very pleased. And we coordinate with the Transportation Planning Organization with municipalities to make sure that all of our projects are incorporated into the federal and state documents. We also have grants planning and development. So we seek those opportunities when we have our projects that are prioritized. And additionally to that, we have passenger amenities and facilities planning. So we take a look at what our first point of contact with our customers is, and those are the passenger amenities and the infrastructure planning and facilities for our operators and our staff. Right. Thank you.
And Lisa, so like myself, we're both urban planners, right? So what is the trajectory, your career path that kind of led you into DTPW? What were some of the things you were doing in the past?
Correct. So I started my career in Venezuela. I'm originally from Venezuela, and I started my career with infrastructure development planning with the World Bank. That was a program that was started in Venezuela, and work on transit projects that included light rail planning, also included bus rapid transit, that are projects that are already implemented that the community is using. The community over there, we have 65 to 85% ridership in transit, so the transit is really dependent on transit. When I moved here back in '98, I worked for a little while on projects back in New York and that area. I moved here in 2000. When I moved here in 2000, I started with some traffic operations, also some project development and environment, and also municipal planning. I worked in the private sector for a while, and then transitioned to working with the Florida Department of Transportation, with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and now this is my latest gig, if you may, with the Department of Transportation and Public Works, which really encompasses a lot of all of my career path. So this is a great opportunity which was provided to me to help the community, work with all of our stakeholders, and really bring all of these plans and projects to life to help our customers and really help shape our community.
And by the way, Lisa, thank you, because without you, I would not have passed a couple classes in school on statistics and site planning for sure. So thank you for your help with that. I wouldn't be here today without you. And Director, what is your background? I know you're an engineer. Tell us, where you went to school and where you've been.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, I don't remember ever wanting to be anything else than an engineer. Oh. So it's sort of... It's a much more boring career path. I just have interesting projects that I've been a part of. But I'm a local product. I was born in Cuba. I came here when I was preteen, and I went to school here at FIU. And then I did some work as a consultant. Did some work not only here but in Latin America as well. And then I got started. It was an interesting decision. Once the recession came and things along those lines, I jumped over into the public sector and I started working in Miami Beach. And there we did a lot of great things. We worked a lot on, I think a switch went off when I got there in looking at that community and seeing that the needs of that community were a little bit different than the needs that I was used to as a traffic engineer and infrastructure engineer throughout the county and throughout other areas of the country, which was, we really needed to dive back into being multimodal. Yeah, transit. Such
an urbanized area.
Exactly.
Not a lot of room for roadway expansion.
So there was none of that. So we had to bank into bicycle pedestrian, increasing pedestrian safety, making sure bicycle safety was there so that folks get more comfortable in making transitions. And we were able to advance a lot of those items, having a very strong transportation master plan, a bicycle pedestrian master plan that was very forward thinking. And then that landed me here in the county, which is interesting because in my 2.5, close to 3 years in the county, I've pretty much almost, except transit operations, I've been almost everywhere, because I've been in operations and maintenance on the infrastructure side, overseeing traffic signals and signs, roadway bridges and canals, facilities and systems. Then I went over to project delivery to try to get that organized and try to make sure that we continue to push forward with the movement of our projects and our governance of our projects. And now, I've gotten the opportunity to be the interim director, which is sort of encompasses my tenure through with the department and having a good view of pretty much all things, which, from a perspective, having had the multiple roles within the department sort of gives me an idea on how the department operates, and I could get down to, a level of detail that perhaps it may not be common for this position, but it helps out a lot in giving perspective. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And congratulations again on your promotion. Well deserved. Now, you mentioned earlier on that the department had been merged probably, about a decade ago, maybe a little less.
Close to, yeah.
And now the news came out that it's going to be split up again. How do you ensure, tell us about that, and how do you ensure that the two departments continue to work together and collaborate? Because there are, some distinct areas of responsibility, but then there's also some overlap, right?
I feel like we're two kids that play in the same playground, right? We may like different things, but ultimately we share the same space, and we cannot forget that that's the principle. That was of course a recommendation, a decision by our mayor, and of course, from a budgetary perspective, it needs to go back to the Board of County Commissioners to get approved from the perspective of how the budget's going to be split up and things along those lines. But it's a process that I honestly want to thank our mayor and not pushing this process forward, and from a standpoint of just looking at it from a budgetary perspective. We looked at it, they allowed us within the department and the leadership within the department to participate and actually be the recommenders on how this would happen. I think we've come a long way, although not finalized with that effort internally. But the way that we're looking at this is we undoubtedly are going to have we now share principles. And that principle, not only from a project perspective, from a governance perspective, as well as from a maintenance perspective. I think there have been good things learned from both sides when they merged. And I think when probably Lisa and I joined the department and the former director, there were still distinct areas that didn't connect at all. And we've been able to, over the past 3 years, to really connect those areas. And now it's a little bit hard to move them apart, but the way that we're dealing with that is making sure that we're bringing the best from each side and sort of making sure that it permeates through the other department. And in doing so, we've identified what are the functions, what are going to be our new core functions. We almost went through a strategic session when it came to that, identified new vision, new mission, new functions for the departments. And then we started diving down into, what each division individually does and things along those lines. And then you have to go back, right, and attack it from the other perspective on budgetary impacts. What does the ledger look like in terms of positions? I think we've reached what is a pretty good way on doing it. But more importantly, I think what you're going to see going forward, as the community and in dealing with the CITT and everything else, is you're going to see almost a department or a group that speaks in unison in terms of doing projects, the way that we scope projects, the way that we look at maintenance of operations and concepts of operations. It's going to have to be, when a transit project happens, they're going to be looking at how is the infrastructure going to be maintained and implemented, as well as when Public Works does a project or plans a project, a corridor widening or so, we're going to have to also look at that in how is it going to serve transit or multimodal transportation, and how can we best accommodate that? So that's the critical aspect.
And I think one of the things that's going to help make sure that both departments are moving in the same direction is a guiding star, right? And that guiding star is a plan of some sorts. And Lisa, I know you've been working diligently now for many months, if not years, on this kind of grand master plan for transportation that now both departments can steer towards. You want to speak to that for a second?
Thank you for the question. So we have been developing the countywide transportation master plan. It's a directive of our board. The master plan is really setting up a framework where we can have do our due diligence, work with our municipal partners, work with the different county departments, work with the Florida Department of Transportation, the CITT, the Transportation Planning Organization, the community, and make sure that we have a organized framework to prioritize our projects, and also prioritize them by mode. So we have, within the master plan, we have a bicycle pedestrian plan, a freight plan, a roadway plan, a transit plan. Additionally, we look at different components: resiliency, innovation, community. We have engaged with over 10,000 stakeholders, through pop-up events, working within the different planning areas with the municipalities and the community, to make sure that we get that input that we need to shape our plan. And this is the first time that we organize all of the different plans that we already had within the county and prioritize them. So this plan provides a framework so we can then have that input into our federal documents. So we are an implementing agency similar to the municipalities, the Florida Department of Transportation, and those projects, which are 1,000 projects more or less, will then go into the long-range transportation plan, into the transportation improvement program, in a way that is fair, that takes the community's input, and also that is organized, that is methodical in a way.
And I want to thank you for that, because I think many of the problems we see today is as a result of lack of planning in the distant past, right? No one here is responsible for that, but I think we've learned the lessons that we need to plan ahead. We know we're growing, we know new technologies are being introduced, we know that land use and transit and transportation are kind of two sides of the same puzzle, and we need to marry those things and think a little more holistically. And you only do that through strategic planning. So thank you for finally accomplishing that. And I imagine it was Commissioner Higgins who kind of launched that effort at the commission. So thank you, Commissioner Higgins, for thinking strategically. So from planning, now let's kind of shift gears to implementation. I know one of the core objectives of the department and of the plan is strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan, what we all come to know as the SMART program now, right? So briefly, for those who are living under a rock and don't know what that is, briefly explain what that is, and maybe provide us some updates on some key projects.
Sure. So that is, it started as a SMART plan, right? And a lot of planning was done around it, and it basically encompasses what I believe are key corridors for rapid transit that are not new, right? I think we've, at one point or another, we've all had interaction with these corridors from prior plans and long-range transportation plans. But they were finally encompassed within a particular plan, and a guiding principle was given towards these. And this is encompassed, of course, the South Corridor, what is the busway, the North Corridor along 27th, just reaching the northern part of the county, the Northeast Corridor that reaches, around the Aventura area all the way down to downtown, the East-West Corridor that reaches the western parts of the county. We also have the Kendall Corridor, which that's a corridor that hasn't moved as quickly, and of course the Beach Corridor as well that will connect out to Miami Beach. Right now, we're working on several projects and advancing some of those. I think the South Corridor being the first one to get out of the gate. We are in the midst of finalizing construction on that. And it's an interesting program. And I want to sort of do a parenthesis there, because at some point, I would say a couple of years ago, we removed the name plan from it, and now we call it the SMART program. No longer planning. We're in the implementation phase for these projects. So as we look at some of these programs, we not only look at the project itself that encompasses the transit corridor and the operation, but what is around it and what contributes to the project. And not only to that project itself, but to projects within the area that will contribute to the mobility of that project and success of that project. So, for instance, the South Corridor, we all know that it is on the existing busway. What did we do to that busway? We created BRT stations, 14 BRT stations that are state of the art. They have an air-conditioned vestibule. We have the first ever electric fleet of buses that are arriving little by little. We have about 16 of them already, 29 more coming in the coming weeks. And that will allow us to have a corridor that is bus rapid transit. But the interesting nuance of that corridor is that, unlike other bus rapid transits throughout the world, this is the first one that is going to have arm gates, that is going to have some level of not only signal priority but actual preemption. So it's going to work a lot like a rail corridor, and in doing so, it's going to cut down on the commute time for about 40 minutes from folks all the way from Florida City all the way to downtown in its connection to Metro Rail. And part of that program, we're also looking at the park and ride at 344th. That's a project that it's already in design. We have a garage at 168th that is also a park and ride there. We also have Dayland South that we're doing a pretty strong revamping of that entire station in order to accommodate the BRT. We're working on Dayland North as well, although a little bit not necessarily part of this corridor. It is in close proximity. We have a number of TODs within that area that are going to help feed the corridor. So
TODs, for those who don't know, transit-oriented developments, right? So the land use surrounding the stations that actually they benefit each other. Right?
Exactly, and they are dependent on one another. The success of a good corridor is on its land use, and the success of that land use is on having transit accompany it. So that encompasses an entire program that ensures the success of that corridor. luckily and happily, we have good staff working on that corridor. We're close to opening the corridor sometime in Q2 of this year. And we're timing that very closely with, of course, our new lineup and things along those lines, because there's a lot of education that's going to have to go into that. So we're already planning on those things, and we'll be deploying an educational campaign in the coming month or so to make sure that the public is well aware of the changes that are coming. Together with that, we're working very diligently on the Northeast Corridor. We all know the Northeast Corridor is a corridor that operates on existing Florida East Coast Railways tracks, or would operate there, where Brightline already operates, where South Florida RTA already operates as well. And this is a commuter rail. Folks ask a lot, what Brightline already operates it. Why not take Brightline? Brightline serves a completely different section of the population and a completely different demand in terms of trips, right? They're looking at longer spans, longer stops. This is a commuter rail that not only connects the anchors at Aventura and Miami Central and downtown, but we're going to add 5 more stations, one on 151st, one across FIU Biscayne campus at 125th, then we're going to have one around the 62nd area, we're going to have one in the Design District, and one, of course, in Wynwood, and of course coming into Miami Central. We are in the midst of designing that project. We were successful, and thanks to Lisa and everything she explained, we were successful in, of course, securing our environmental clearance, and we've been diligent in working with the Federal Transit Administration in securing funds as well for this project. We've been in the president's budget at least once, and hope to be in the coming year as well.
Yeah, to the tune of like $400 million, right? So
around $400 million.
It was huge.
There is local funding, of course, and FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation, has also been a huge help to this project, contributing $200 million to the project. We're in the midst of design, approaching 60%. And we're working with all our project partners in negotiations. Whenever you're doing a project of this type, there's a lot of negotiating that you have to do, particularly when the corridor is not yours. So we're in the midst of negotiation with our project partners as well. I think the way that we're working that project and the governance that we've been giving to that project through our program director in that project has been sort of the guidance to follow as projects move forward. We have also been working with FDOT, who has been leading the North Corridor. They are the agency that has been leading the environmental analysis for the North Corridor, and they're well underway in doing so. And together with that, we're also working on the East-West and the Beach Corridor as well, that are not necessarily at the same level of design. They're more in the environmental stage, but are projects that are moving forward very quickly.
Wow, that's a lot. Lisa, anything you want to add on this?
I think it's important that we have stakeholders that are working together, and I think this is the first time that we see all of us coming together. The Transportation Planning Organization, the CITT, the Florida Department of Transportation, our agency, our elected officials, our mayor. So we're all aligned, and we do have the support of our federal government as well, working together with us in unison to help advance the project along with all of our different partners. And it's important that we all know each other for a long time. I met Josiel at the beach. I met you at FAU. So we understand the community, what it needs. The community is also working with us on these projects, and all of that is critical from a planning and then a project delivery as we advance our projects.
Absolutely, and I want to give a shout out to all of our transportation partners for being so wonderful, and all of us working well together. Hasn't always been the case, right? Well, I know in the past agencies, have had different priorities. Some didn't really buy into multimodal as much as they do now. And I also want to say that our officials are really aligned. It used to be that the county commission wasn't necessarily aligned on transit, for instance. And I think without a fail, every single one of them believes in transit and is supportive of the SMART plan and all the investments we're making. So shout out to our partners and to all of our officials, right?
Definitely. I mean, political support and will, it's what gets projects like this moving forward.
Absolutely. So you touched on TODs, and now there's this TOCs as well, right? Transit-oriented communities. There's actually a great event. I have to give a shout out to the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce, speaking of partners. because they are hosting a developers forum next, I think on the 30th, which is focused on transit-oriented developments. I believe you're going to be speaking there, so
Yes,
I look forward to hearing you. And by the way, if you're interested, please visit their website, miamichamber.com. I imagine there are still tickets available. So transit-oriented development, as we said, is the other side of that coin, right? Land use and transportation. What are some of the TODs that the department is currently kind of engaged in to make sure that the areas immediately surrounding both our existing system and the future smart plan corridors are being activated?
So we're working on several projects, either expansion of several projects. Some of these projects that are a little bit older in nature has several phases that we're working through. The link at Douglas, Coconut Grove, and these are all along the transit. And then we'll speak a little bit about bus rapid transit and how that could play a part to it. Of course, we have the Vox as well, which is closer to the South Miami area,
Just a couple blocks from here.
Exactly, a couple blocks from here. That's going to serve for student housing. And of course, I mean, there's also what I would say probably the first iteration of semblance of transit-oriented development in Dayland, where we have some of those buildings down there that are served by transit. But even across our office, we have Block 45, another transit-oriented development that it's in the midst of construction. So. Sure. It's very it's a point of I think privilege to the department that we have been able to add more affordable housing and are projected to add more affordable housing in the next 5 years than any other county department, and that's through the use of what was before underutilized land. And in
Brownsville is another great example.
Brownsville is another great example. We have Northside, another great example. So we have a number of examples in which we took land that had been purchased with federal dollars back in the 80s when Metro Rail was first starting out, and been able to, working with the FTA, working with the private developers, being able to turn that into usable space for our community and a benefit for our community to address some of the housing crisis that we're living through. Upcoming projects, we're looking at Okeechobee. Okeechobee has, we have some ongoing construction there, Metro Grand, which is also an affordable housing for our elderly. But we're also looking at, the garage area there, and we're going to be coming up with an RFP, request for proposals for that area to also do a transit-oriented community there. And being able to take advantage, and then all the way at the end of our line, of the green line, we have, of course, the Palmetto Station, and there we have a major project that is going to also be transformative, where we're going to have as well as affordable housing. And that one, the interesting part with that one is we're going to have priority for transit workers. We're going to have priority for first responders as well. So, a section of and we consider our transit workers first responders. I think we, a lot of the folks during the pandemic, some of us got a chance to sort of shelter in place while our transit workers, our operators were there at the forefront. So a big shout out to them, because, every time I meet with them, I remind them how important they were during those trying times for our community. But we're giving that level of priority to our folks, as well as of course, first responders and police officers and of course EMTs, as well as the rest of the community. And that's a project that's in the permitting stage now. Now when we switch over to the bus side, and it's interesting because historically transit-oriented communities, or TODs, or transit-oriented development, was sort of only captured or hostage to rail corridors. Right. And we've expanded that. We've expanded that to, hey, there is opportunities around the South, the South Dade BRT. There's opportunities. So we have, Quail Roost. We have other development that's coming up, approaching us in that area, that is going to benefit significantly from the opening of the BRT down south. And then we're looking at some other areas. I mean, recently, the Upland area out west, next to our Dolphin Station, where there's going to be a fairly large development there, and it's going to not only help and provide more ridership to our east-west corridor in the future, but even to our current express service through the 836 that we plan on enhancing coming forward. So that's another big project that's getting ready to kick off.
Yeah, it's been great to see, as an urban planner who's been thinking about these things for many years, it's been great to see the communities and the development community finally buy into this idea that transit is a net positive, right? And it's a selling feature for their developments. People don't want to sit in traffic. And so if you give them an alternative that's nearby within walking distance or easily connected, they're more willing to live there. And actually make it more affordable to live there, because now their transportation costs are likely to come down, right?
And one of the things that we are also working on is station area planning, and that accompanies all of our different smart corridors. As we are developing the South 8 Transitway, we are working with the municipalities along that corridor. We are developing those smart area plans that look at affordable housing, that look at the infrastructure, that look at first last mile connections to the corridors. And we are going to be starting also working with the communities. For example, on the North Corridor, we already have engaged with a community action agency, so that way the community can participate with us and help us as we are developing those station area plans, and see how we can also revitalize those corridors and also make sure that the economy can improve, for example, on the North Corridor and other locations as well.
Right. So thinking holistically, which is important, right? And how everything kind of ties into each other and supports another. So that's fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned the municipalities, because they're a key part of this. They get 20% of the half-penny funds. They obviously maintain their own roadways as well, and so they're in this space. I know we're trying to all work better together. I often say we don't have a transit system in Miami. We have 36, because we have Miami-Dade Transit, we have Tri-Rail, and we have 34 municipalities, all of whom are running some kind of transit service, whether it's a fixed route circulator or increasingly on-demand service. So how does the department interact with the cities on a regular basis to make sure that not only long-term planning, but just even the existing systems are interconnected and working as one seamless system?
That's a great question, and it's something that we have been improving on a year-to-year basis, I would say. Historically, the department has looked at regional transit as the responsibility of the county, and it is so, connecting the cities. But there's also a switch that has gone off in a lot of these cities and a lot of the municipalities, that if you are running some level of service, whether it be trolley service or in fixed route or on demand, there is an opportunity, depending on where the demand is, that you can connect within your communities as well, because ultimately the only one that stands to benefit is the user. Right. So we're working very closely with municipalities, not only through the work that Lisa's doing in terms of the master plan and some of the municipal workshops that we've done through that effort, but also even when we look at on-demand service, when we look at fixed route service, we are working with the municipalities on taking a look at the routes, taking a look at their geofencing, taking a look at their connections. How can they better provide the first mile, last mile connection to our transit, which is the important piece. How do they connect to our metro rail stations? How do they connect to our BRT stations? And how can they complement us? But we need to do a better job at that as well. I think we need to sort of roll up our sleeves a little bit more when it comes to that, and be able to ask for more of ourselves as well as from our municipalities, in order to really have a holistic system that is all on the same platform. Right. That as a user, we can, it doesn't matter where I'm going. I could use anyone's system in order to get where I'm going, and it's easy for me to access. So those are things that we're working very closely with municipalities through our innovation strategies as well, to make sure that we're getting the data through some of these agreements that we're having for on-demand transit, make sure that the data is coming back, so that we can not only analyze the data, see how that data is working with our system, but also be able to live in the same platform, our same platform as well. So these are items that we're working towards, and are looking forward to working a little bit closer with our municipalities.
Please.
And I did want to expand, and Josiel, hit the nail on the head. We are trying to enhance that collaboration with the municipalities. We are engaging in a comprehensive operational analysis that we started last year, and the TPO was critical in working with us. They provided origin destination data for all of our bus system. We got a directive from our board to identify what gaps we had in the system, looking at working on efficiencies with the municipalities. So we are engaging in that effort, looking at ridership, on-time performance, looking at where we can have that better collaboration and look at the system holistically so we can provide recommendations in the short term, midterm, and longer term as well for the entire bus operation system post our expansion of our service, which we call the Better Bus Network. So post that BBN, look at how we can better provide that service, working collaboratively with our partners.
Right. And BBN, from all accounts, has been a success, right?
It has been. We've experienced a significant increase, I think, not only taking us from being the 15th largest transit agency in terms of ridership to the 10th, and that's all been in a span of a year and a half, but we've experienced up to a 14% increase in our ridership, and generally making trips shorter. I think that's not only a testament to the fact that our community is receptive to transit when transit operates as it should, right? And our on-time performance is better. Our trip lengths, of course, are better. And we're ultimately getting people to places on time, and that is reflecting in the numbers.
And complementing the bus system now is Metro Connect. So we talked about the municipal on-demand services, but now the county is in the on-demand business as well. So tell us about Metro Connect. It was launched not too long ago. How's it doing?
We have 5 zones. We are getting a lot of demand on that as well. And the intent of that, the idea behind that is, let's make sure that we fill in gaps where perhaps service is no longer there because it wasn't supported. So therefore, running fixed service at a high cost wasn't the best course of business for the community or for us either. And supplementing that with on-demand service to get folks where they need to go, get them closer to transit, fixed route transit, and making sure that we're ultimately expanding our reach within the community. That service is doing pretty well. We have pretty high demand. We have very good contractors that are working through. We've done some tweaks in order to improve on-time performance on that as well. And those tweaks are translating into folks being more receptive to the use. So as we go forward, there's going to be further changes that we do and further tweaks that we do. And we're going to be looking to expand this service to areas of low ridership that turn into low service.
Right. Are these largely in unincorporated areas, or is it kind of?
We have largely, it's mostly, at least the one the county runs is in unincorporated areas.
Because the cities kind of have their own programs,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And we're working with them to try to complement all of those services back into our spine transit.
Excellent. And okay, so first last mile connectivity. Let's get back to that. Yes, we're connecting the transit system and to our communities through things like on demand, through our bus system, through trolleys. But let's talk about non-motorized, right? Bicycle, pedestrian, micromobility. I know that's a big part of the plan that you've been working on. The department has invested heavily in the underline, and I think we're in the final phase of that, which is fantastic. And shout out not only to CITT member Meg Daly, who founded the underline, but also to your predecessor, Ulyss Cleckley, who's now president and CEO,
I believe, exactly,
of the underline. So wonderful project, right? But what's going to follow that? How do we ensure that we have underlines throughout the county and that everything is interconnected?
So through the development of the master plan, we have been working with our partner agencies to make sure that we have a connected system of bicycle and pedestrian network. We work very closely with our project delivery team. We have identified what those sidewalk gaps are. For example, we want to make sure that our pedestrians can get to where they need to get safely. Also, the bicycle connectivity on the network, we want to make sure that people can travel safely, and also make sure that we consider the different types of user that we have, because we have people that want to be driving quick on the spandex crowd, if we want to call it that. But we also have the mothers that want to go with their children and really have a recreational trail that they can follow. We have a lot of tourists that come and ride on the Rickenbacker Causeway and the Venetian Causeway. So we really have to consider all of the different users. And in line with that, we also have our Vision Zero program that is very aligned with safety. We have prioritized 40 corridors on the high injury network on our Vision Zero action plan that was adopted last year. We also have projects that we have been implementing in the ground, 18 of 24 projects that were prioritized have already been implemented by our project delivery team and advanced. And we continue to advance those projects to make sure that our bicycle and pedestrian, everybody is safe on our network as they are connected to where they need to go. So it's safe routes to places, to if they're going to a park, if they're going to a hospital, if they're going to a school. We're working a lot with a community outreach program with hospitals, with different community liaison. We have a community liaison program. We want to make sure that we're working with the municipalities as we are implementing all of different components, which is safety, infrastructure, and also educational programs and campaigns. So all of these things are important as we are considering the non-motorized infrastructure in our community.
And to expand on that, I think is, once we actually get to deliver projects, right? So we're working on the South Day Trail. We got environmental clearance on that project, so it's a project that we've gotten some grant funding as well, and we're in the midst of designing that project. That's adjacent to our busway, and it's going to be a nice complementary system to our busway. But we've also demonstrated to our community and to ourselves, I think, that we are on the quick build and space as well. In advance of the National Association of City Transportation Officials Conference, which was the first time it was held in the Southeast down here, we completed 14 projects in 3 months.
Wow.
So we have the opportunity to get things done quickly. So in working with our master plan, working with, some of the corridors that were already planned, we're trying to push pedal to the metal and making sure that we can get projects going forward in the space of bicycle pedestrians. I'm a plan engineer, right? I've not only lived the hardcore production, but I like to dabble into planning and particularly on bicycle pedestrian planning. So I think this county, because of weather, because of a number of the way that we drive, the traffic, the safety, we owe it to the users of those facilities to be safe. And that's first and foremost. I think the majority of cyclists fit within that, interested but concerned. And if we build the right facility, we're able to, get them a little bit more comfortable with, hopping on the bike and doing those short trips on the bike. And that's what we're attempting to do.
It's funny you mentioned, so I rode my bike to work for several years prior to the pandemic. I need to get back to that, but I need the underline to be finished in order to make my route safe to work. But the one component that I was lucky to have that many people don't is that when I got to work, there was a shower facility.
Yes.
Right? And I kept all my clothing at work, and I was able to make that work. Most people don't necessarily have that. Are you working with RER, with our planners, to see if we could either incentivize or require shower facilities, bicycle parking, those amenities that make this whole thing work for a bike commuter?
And that's a great question. I think we have been working with Jerry Bell and his team in RER. They are going to undertake the environmental and appraisal report, the update of the Comprehensive Development Master Plan. And as we have some implementation recommendations policy-wise in our master plan, we want to work on those recommendations that will incentivize transit, bicycle, pedestrian, and all of those transportation demand management strategies that will be incorporated and updated into that plan. So we already have started that coordination, both our teams, so that way we can incorporate those recommendations into the plan and also work with developments when they come into the door.
And also, it's a little bit of leading by example. So I know Lisa's also leading a facilities master plan, in which we're looking and working closely with our own employees to see what are the needs within our facilities. Not only are they state of the art and new and clean and all that, but what are they offering in terms of amenities?
The county, I think, is either the largest or second largest employer in Miami-Dade County, so it can really make a difference.
Exactly. So how do we include some of those amenities within our facilities and other amenities that are essentially our employees have asked for, in order to make their day at work better, make them more productive, which ultimately translates into better service for our community.
Okay. Showers. So before we leave first last mile, let's talk about some of the new technologies, and not so new anymore, I guess, at this point, but e-bikes and scooters. And they're a little controversial, right? Because sometimes they get abandoned on a sidewalk and become obstacles. There's some safety concerns with some of the speeds that they reach. So how does that fit into the first last mile? Are we looking to kind of shoehorn them into the protected bike lanes, or what is our thinking on micro mobility?
So when we look at micro mobility, we have to design for them as well.
Yeah.
So when we look at some of our master planning, when we look at some of the plans that we're looking at, are the facilities correct and wide enough and safe enough to accommodate those type of mobility devices? I think some of the less safe encounters that we've seen with those devices is when not the appropriate facility was designed. They have nowhere to be but a 5-foot sidewalk. They have nowhere to be but a 5-foot bike lane. But if I'm able to provide a protected bike lane in either side, or a shared use path that is wide enough to accommodate, or even if I can provide, if I have enough demand, if I can provide them their own space, then we start reducing some of those encounters. But I think a lot of it also goes into education. How can we educate the public into utilizing those devices in a safe and efficient manner? In a responsible manner, making sure that not at a high level of speed, and that they're not going against traffic and things along those lines, so that we can all coexist. So I think a big part of it that we certainly need to improve on is how do we educate the public on that interaction and what it should be.
Right. So these are kind of a lot of day-to-day things that the department is responsible for. But then, on occasion, you have these major special events that you also have to plan for. And I know, Lisa, you're working on some exciting things related to soccer. Tell us about it. Yes,
our director and our team, along with the Office of the Mayor and our local host committee, we're working on development of FIFA and a mobility plan. We are a big team. We're a part of that team, so we are making sure that we can move the spectators that are going to be coming to the different events. We have 7 games that are going to be hosted here in Miami.
When is this happening?
And this is going to be happening June through July of 2026, but we're planning. We want to have a mobility plan that can move the volunteers that are going to be working the event and also the spectators. We want to make sure that we can accommodate people that are going to be moving from, the 65% is expected to be international.
Wow.
Travelers that are following their teams or want to come to the event. So we want to make sure that we can move that traffic within the state and even within the region, because now with Brightline, people can go to Orlando. It's really an experience that people might be here for 7-8 days, go to the event, but also travel around our county and our region. So we are making those provisions. We are making sure that we have those first last mile connections, those transit connections to get to the stadium and also around the region. So that's what we're working towards. And also we already started engaging with our transportation partners, stakeholders, and municipal partners as well, because this is a job that we're all going to do together to be successful.
And I'm going to take this time to sort of advise the community on something, which is parking will be limited or non-existent during this event. So transit is going to be, or we expect it to be, the biggest feeder to this event. So I think be on the lookout for all the projects that we plan on deploying surrounded to transit, surrounded to first and last mile, because parking your own car or even Ubering to the event may not be as efficient as what you're going to be able to accomplish with transit. So we're really encouraging the community and all the users as we work with our project partners. We're going to bring in demonstrative and sort of groundbreaking projects for the area in order to enhance transit leading to the stadium.
Okay, and we're running out of time, but I did want to touch on one thing that we haven't touched on much, because I love to focus on transit and bike ped, and that's the roadway network, right? So the majority of our population still drives, right? And unfortunately tends to be in a single occupancy vehicle. And we move our goods and services on these roadways, right? Which is, another important piece of the puzzle. What is the department doing, I guess, to enhance the roadway network? I know we're constrained, so we can't really expand or extend our roadways. but there are some things that we can do to make it more efficient, such as smart signals. So where are we with those efforts?
We're working closely. We're about to issue the notice to proceed to a contractor on that, to a design builder on that. They're as you know, this is a project that has been a long time coming, and we finally have what we believe is a great contractor local to the area that's bringing good technology into the projects. We're in the process of sort of finalizing the paperwork in order to issue the notice to proceed and get us started. Our signal system is from the 90s. It's a coordinated system. If we still look at around some of the major cities throughout the country, I think our signal system is still pretty good in comparison, but we need to go into the next step, and the next step is connect the vehicles. How do we connect the vehicle to the infrastructure, and how do we get that vehicle to provide some of that data that we need in order to make decisions?
Vehicles at this point are basically rolling computers. Yeah.
So the technology that we're deploying is going to be able to share data to the infrastructure, to have the infrastructure be a little bit more receptive to the demand that is coming at a real-time basis. And what has been known as smart signals, that in the industry it's known by a much more complex name that I don't want to get people lost on. But ultimately, the idea is selecting the corridors, and we have already selected them, and that's part of phase 3 of this project, in order for us to be able to deploy technology that responds in real time, or as close as possible to real time, to the demand. Now, I do want to echo, because that's part of my background as well, the technology and the signal side is, with levels of high congestion, it is very difficult for smart signals to work as they should. You will not see, when we reach that crush load of high demand within our roadways that we all experience at one point or another, whether it be I-95, US 1, smart signals are not the answer for that. The answer for that is transit. The answer for that is an alternative method of transportation. Exactly, getting folks off the roads. But during those other areas of mid to low demand, that we see that sometimes we wait at signals for a significant period of time without seemingly no competing traffic, and there's a line of cars behind us. That's when smart signals come in and work through the entire corridor to make it more efficient and make it work better. So that's what we're working on as a project, that we have a high goal to get it implemented within 5 years.
Fantastic. Listen, we are out of time. I know we could speak for another 3 hours because you're involved in so much, but it sounds like you're doing great work, and you're thinking about the future and planning for it and working well with others. So it's really all we can ask of you. So thank you. And thank you for being such a great partner to the CITT.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us, and looking forward to continuing to partner with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
And who are you rooting for in the World Cup? Argentina. Okay. I'll root for the good old US of A, but I don't think we're going to make it very far. So with that, we're going to bring the program to a close. Folks, you can catch us here every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. Always here in our great studios, hosted by our great partners, Miami's community newspapers. We invite you to learn more about us, again, on our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. You could also learn more about everything DTPW is doing at miamidade.gov/DTPW.
DTPW.
DTPW. That makes sense.
Transportation and Public Works, yes.
Okay, with that, we're going to bring the program to a close.